It's time to pick a side. The Border War is on the air with BG and TanMan.
All right, gang, welcome into episode 98 of the Border War. I'm TanMan. I'm joined in the studio by BG. It is cold. It is raining outside, but something tells me things are going to heat up on Tobacco Road here in about 5 hours. Welcome in, guys. Before we get started on that one, we want to thank you for tuning in. Mention all the platforms we can be found. If you're not listening live, if you're listening to us on the podcast version, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, TuneIn Radio, whatever it is, we want to thank you for joining us. Go check out our partners over at Stadium Scene TV. A great article popped up this morning about young kids specializing in one sport. I thought was pretty interesting. So go check that out when you're done here.
That's actually a topic I had jotted down for one of our summertime conversations. I think that actually is becoming, both my youngest son plays a lot of youth sports. I end up talking to a lot of parents. That topic comes up a lot.
Yeah.
So that's a good timely piece by Stadium Scene. So like TanMan said, go over there and check that out.
Yeah, go check those guys out. Podcast, articles, whatever you like, it's all there. BG, there's a ball game tonight, 9 o'clock, Cameron Indoor Stadium.
Man, and why 9 o'clock?
I don't know.
God, it's awful.
The last few years, we've gotten some 8 o'clock games.
That extra hour makes a big difference. Oh. Now, fortunately, it is college basketball, which is I like to call Disney movie length. Right, it's an hour and a half. Yeah. You can get an hour and a half basketball game in from time to time. It's not a football game that would go 3.5 hours, so that's good.
Nah,
but 9 still.
I'm not even bothering trying to stay and watch a football game that starts at 9 o'clock.
No, that's not even a thing. Yeah, Monday Night Football used to start at 9.
It did used to start.
Is it 8:30 or 8 now?
I don't know. Yeah, nobody watches Monday Night Football anymore.
No, they really don't.
All right, BG, Carolina and Duke, and yes, I said Carolina.
It's fine.
Yeah, we're in basketball season, so it's Carolina. The topic always comes up: is this the best rivalry in sports? Maybe. You're not deeply entrenched in the rivalry like I am. So tell me from the outside perspective.
I mean, and I think that's okay. Let me just say this: it's the best college basketball rivalry, and it isn't close. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not even like I don't know what second place is, but I don't know.
Kentucky and Louisville, maybe, but even that's hammer and nail most of the time.
That's there is no college basketball rivalry that even touches it. But here's my argument against it. Now, first of all, let me say that I don't think any professional rivalries are even worth bringing up.
Uh-huh.
I think there was a time when there were professional rivalries. Our whole show is in part based on, the Cowboys-Redskins rivalry. We've talked about this. 2/3 of those players have played for both teams.
Well, not only that.
I don't even know what that is
Not
anymore.
only that, though. Take the Cowboys and Redskins, for instance. How many playoff games have they combined to win in the last 30 years?
4 or 5.
I mean,
yeah.
Come on.
So but even Red Sox, Yankees that get shoved down our throat. I mean, again, too much cross pollination. I don't know. So I mean, I think the rivalries that I would put up against North Carolina and Duke are, frankly, college football rivalries. Ohio State, Michigan, the Iron Bowl, the Palmetto Bowl, whatever. Okay, so those rivalries. But here's the thing. We're going to talk about this in a few minutes. This is if it pervaded outside the basketball world a little bit more, I might be willing to buy into it. But
Auburn and Alabama doesn't pervade outside the football world.
You're right. But, it's odd to me that, Duke and North Carolina, we're going to talk about it in our next show, are both ranked in the top 10 in the country in baseball as well. It's not a big deal when y'all play.
Right.
Should be. Carolina Clemson, it's a big deal when they play baseball. It's kind of a big deal when they play basketball, except that they play the week before Christmas vacation
with
starts.
no one in the kids
when the students aren't on campus.
I'm going to tell you, This is.
But I don't have. But that's the thing. I was going to say. I'm saying it's not. But I don't have an answer for what is better.
Look,
so maybe it is.
You mentioned Ohio State and Michigan. Hammer and nail. Ohio State's won 15 of the last 16 times. I mean, they go through these stretches. Auburn and Alabama. Is Auburn really on Alabama's level? And
not consistent.
Minus a year here or a year there. No. You can go back to North Carolina, and every year, and the numbers basically stay the same. This is 149 straight meetings where at least one of them has been ranked. This is the 46th meeting where they've both been in the top 10, and the last 103 meetings, North Carolina leads 52-51, and they have outscored Duke by a total of 3 points.
That's a pretty compelling argument.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
I got into a Twitter discussion with a fellow Cowboys fan this morning. Basically tried to argue that, if you're outside the Carolinas, nobody cares about this rivalry. I politely told him, look, if you don't like basketball, that's cool. You don't have to like basketball.
But isn't that true of every rivalry?
Kind of.
People want to say, Southern Cal and Notre Dame. First of all, I don't know anybody who cares about that rivalry.
I don't really know anybody who cares about either one of those two schools to be honest.
I don't think that Southern Cal, and during the whole, and it was kind of a funny thing on Twitter during the whole, USC versus USC debate a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Southern Cal's Twitter fan base is non-existent.
That's too much to do.
If that had, that's the thing. It's like New York. There's not college fans in New York City. They don't even have football. It's all pro.
Yeah.
Los Angeles isn't even, I don't even think sports is a thing, really.
As long as they're winning, it is. If they stink, look at
the Rams were winning.
Well, the place was packed.
The Cowboys had 40,000 fans there, man.
Good point.
Cowboys had 40,000 fans there. And I think the Lakers are a thing because they're a thing. It's a fashion statement to go see the Lakers play, right? Jack Nicholson's there. It's not about the basketball.
You may Lakers Celtics, okay. I'll entertain a Lakers Celtics.
That's the only professional rivalry I would even put up there.
Yeah,
that's the only one.
I would say in the early to mid 2000s, before Boston had broken the World Series curse, when you had Pedro Martinez and Roger Clemens
but that's your point, though. We're not talking about little pockets of time.
Right. I said that early to mid 2000s, Yankees Red Sox. In my lifetime, I think that was probably as hot as it'll get. Even ESPN now has kind of let off the throttle of that. They basically let off the throttle of baseball in general.
They overdid it.
And so now they're paying. But every year this thing delivers. North Carolina Duke always delivers, as Jay Billis says. Like I say, if you don't like basketball, that's cool. But don't argue. I'm not really up for an argument about whether or not
Why
this is the
do
best
you
rivalry.
think, though, that in sports where they're both very competitive, that you don't see this, not the same level of fervor kind of creep over, but you guys playing football, man, there's no interest in it at all. Not even between the two fan bases.
Well, I think the first point I mentioned, 149 times where one of the two teams have been ranked.
Yeah.
46 meetings where they've both been in the top 10. I think there's a level of success and a level of excellence from both of these programs that you just don't see on the football field.
No, you're right. Maybe that's part of it, or maybe that's all of it. But I just know as a South Carolina fan, if we beat Clemson in women's golf, I'm psyched. I want to beat them in anything.
Yeah,
I love beating Clemson, and I don't care in what. I'm not going to sit here and be an idiot.
Equestrian.
We dominate them in equestrian.
Softball.
I think Clemson equestrian basically just disbanded because of the power of South Carolina's horse riders.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be stupid and sit here and say that they've beaten us in football, they've beaten us in basketball, they've beaten us in baseball the last few years, and
the big three.
No number of overall Palmetto Cup wins by South Carolina, which we have won. I might as well just mention it for 4 years straight. But no amount of those wins makes up for those three. I'm not going to lie.
No, it doesn't.
I'm not going to lie. But that being said, again, when we beat them in women's soccer, I'm going to retweet it. If I catch that game on, I'm going to watch it. It has nothing to do with whether or not I like soccer. I like beating Clemson. I like competing against schools that I do not like. And I don't see that with Duke and North Carolina outside of basketball. Maybe, but I'm not in it.
You got a good point.
And to be fair now, I don't know that I'm the typical South Carolina or Clemson fan.
Yeah.
Certainly not that Clemson doesn't care anything outside of football, period. But
you got a good point that
I would just like to see more of that.
Yeah, outside of the basketball arena, the rivalry, nationally isn't what some of the other ones is. But this is a discussion. When you say Carolina and Duke, you're talking about basketball.
Sure. And I think you have, and it's an interesting rivalry too, because neither of those schools has an inferiority complex towards the other one. And South Carolina hates Clemson in large part because they beat us 2 times out of 3.
ESPN might try and convince you today that there's some sort of inferiority complex going on, but there is not. The talking heads will push that narrative.
Well, everybody ran their mouths about it last year. You split the series, right?
Beat them 2-1.
So that's right, because you played them in the tournament. Right. So I mean. But that is interesting. Like, as much success as Auburn has, you're crazy if you don't think Auburn fans are a little jealous of Alabama. You're crazy if you don't think South Carolina fans are a little bit jealous of Clemson's success. You're crazy if you think that Michigan's not a little Ohio State's had their own issues. But as far as head-to-head matchups, then yes. I mean, but you just don't see that in Duke and North Carolina. I mean, I will say that I tend to pull for North Carolina in this, and that flies in the face of the show. I mean, I guess I'm supposed to always pull against North Carolina, right? It's the border
war. It's not the border buddies.
But here's my problem, man. Duke fans drive me crazy. They don't pull for They don't pull for Duke in anything else.
No,
most of them are Clemson football fans.
Or South Carolina football fans.
And I'm not claiming that, there's fewer of those.
Or Green Bay Packer football fans.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying. Duke is just one of those schools that you expect to see paired up with, Miami football and a Lakers sticker and let's just say it, a Dallas Cowboy helmet. That's really what we're getting at here.
So you cross the line there.
Duke and Dallas are a pair that deserve each other. I agree. Let's put those clowns.
I put it out on Twitter this morning. I wanted to hear from some fans and from some listeners about what their favorite moment is, favorite game, favorite player.
Get a little devil's jelly here. You just keep going.
A little devil's jelly. Well, that makes sense. It is Duke and Carolina night. I saw a lot of the I think it was 74 where they came back from 9 down in 17 seconds. Mm-hmm. Charlie Scott hit the big half-court shot that win. You see the game in I think it was 94 where Stackhouse had the reverse dunk. The Hansborough years produced some great matchups. But BG, I'm going to tell you.
What do you think about him as a player? You like Tyler Hansborough? Is he on your short list of? I'm joking.
He's only the greatest basketball player.
As soon as I posed that question, a sheen of sweat broke out across TanMan's brow. His eyes became.
We are limited in time with this program that we have. I don't think we have enough time.
Right.
In the studio today before they shut the lights off for me to espouse my admiration is a good word for Tyler Hansborough. I might break out the Tyler Hansborough jersey tonight.
Ooh.
Just I
got a feeling that would be a waste of wearing that. I don't think it's going to help you any.
But to me, the most memorable game that I come up with was 2005. It was Roy Williams' second year. It was the second matchup of the season. We were down 9 with about 2 minutes to go. And, of course, you know what happened. We get some turnovers. Marvin Williams winds up with a putback off of a missed free throw. The place goes bananas. At that point, North Carolina had lost. Dean Smith had retired, of course. Mm-hmm. Matt Doherty had come along. We'd gone through some lean years. At one point, we lost 15 of 17 basketball games to Duke. And that was the one that kind of started turning things around. And after that point, they won 8. We were on the verge of becoming, in my opinion, we were coming dangerously close to becoming UCLA or Indiana, a group of has-beens.
Yeah, history
and that 2005 game, that putback by Marvin Williams, to me, really changed the course of changed the course of the program a little bit. Put us back on that path because Duke had gone through. And after Dean had retired, they had gone through. They had won a lot of ACC championships, a lot of ACC tournaments, and ESPN had kind of started picking them up and propping them up a little bit, and they were becoming the darlings. So that one right there, in a rivalry, in a series that has provided a ton of memorable moments, to me, I think, at least in the last 25 or 30 years, that's probably the most important.
I don't think I've ever told you this, but I don't have specific memories, obviously, of this rivalry in the way you do. I've watched a heck of a lot of the games. I particularly remember watching lots and lots and lots and lots of them in the very, very late 80s and early 90s. Mm-hmm. All right. So I've never told you this. When you say North Carolina basketball, to me, the image in my head that immediately pops up is J.R. Reed. That's who I see in my head.
J.R. Reed was a bad man.
And when you say Duke basketball to me, and maybe this is my hatred of Duke, but Bobby Hurley is who I see in my head.
I was going to say Christian Laettner.
Who is right up there with Danny Ainge on my list of people that I want to choke through the television. And both of them have become pretty successful guys in basketball beyond the court. But that era, Reed was a little before that. Reed graduated, 89, 90, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I don't know that he was there exactly. I know the Laettner years when we're like 91, 92, 93, right in there. But, yeah, I will say this. Christian Laettner to me, and I mean, there's a reason there's a 30 for 30 on it. I don't think you will ever see a figure in sports become as universally hated as that man was by the whole country. I remember it. I remember seeing people writing Christian Laettner sucks on the back of their social studies notebook in 7th grade, and they weren't Duke or North Carolina fans. Like, people did not, and you got to give him this. He
loved it.
He was like the Road Warriors, man. He just whatever. It made him better.
I think Tyler Hansbrough got some of that to an extent.
No, he did.
But he didn't. He didn't embrace being the villain.
He didn't quite have the charisma.
Right. He didn't embrace being the villain quite the way Christian Laettner did. I think
Hansbrough never broke the fourth wall. The psycho thing was just that's how he played. Laettner was looking to create the myth once it started rolling.
J.J. Redick was really close, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Redick was really close. He might not quite have gotten to the Laettner level because they never won the championships.
Right.
Redick never won the ring. He didn't come back.
One wonders if Laettner had missed that jump shot. If they had just called traveling, the whole story was different.
Yeah. But like I said, memorable moments. There are. We could sit and talk about old games for hours and hours because there's plenty there. But back to the game tonight, BG. I'm looking at the standings here. Duke's they've got a grasp. They don't have it in a death grip, but they've got a grasp on being the top seed in the ACC. Is tonight more important for North Carolina, in your opinion, or is it more important for Duke?
I think it's more important for Duke. It's on their home court.
Uh-huh.
I think a loss to North Carolina would be, in this particular time in the season and history with the narrative that's going on with Duke, they're finally back at number one. I think it would be a little embarrassing. And that's not anything against you guys. Maybe that's closer to basketball reality, but it doesn't feel like anybody really thinks you guys are going to go up there and pull this thing off.
No, it doesn't.
And
I think it's more important for North Carolina, and for this reason. You look at this thing, Duke's going to be a number one seed come the NCAA tournament time. They are.
Well, I think from that standpoint, you can make the argument that it's not terribly important to either team from a basketball standpoint.
Well, looking at North Carolina, if they win, they create a three-way tie with Duke and Virginia. And then you get into tiebreakers, and I don't really know what all those are. But if they lose tonight, then you're only a half a game up in the loss column, a game up in the loss column on Florida State, Louisville, and Syracuse, where you start falling into that group of 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is where they found themselves last year. They lost every single tiebreaker, and they went from tied for third, and they hit the ACC tournament as a 6th seed, and they were forced to play that extra game on Wednesday. After Duke, this weekend you've got Florida State, who's in that group, and you've got Syracuse, who's in that group. If North Carolina wants to stay out of that quagmire in that 3, 4, 5, 6 range, they've got to win. A win tonight will go a long way to keeping them out of there. So to me, I think tonight is huge for North Carolina. It's not as huge as the next 2 games. I mean, let's be honest. The next 2 games, I think, are a lot more important standing-wise than this one is. But to just give yourself a little bit of breathing room, give yourself a little bit of a break in case you stumble one of the next 2 ball games, tonight could be huge for North Carolina. With that said, what do you expect to happen? How do you expect tonight to go?
I think Duke's going to win it. I think it's going to be an extremely.
You're one of those guys.
Well, I mean, that's just how I see it, and I think the home court plays into it. I think it's one of those things. This might sound crazy. If North Carolina wins this game, I think they win it by double digits. If it's a close game, I think Duke wins it, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think Duke's going to win a 4 to 6 point win. And I don't really have basketball reasons why. I've watched you guys play the ball. I'm a little bit concerned about your propensity to turn the ball over, especially on the road.
That could be a problem.
And it either, for North Carolina, it either seems to be a huge problem during a game or it doesn't happen at all. There's never a game where they're like, we wish we had had 5 fewer turnovers, but we did okay. No, it's either you turn the ball over 18 times or 2. Like right. That just seems to be the case. And, I'm not going to get on my jump on the Zion bandwagon. I did pick him to be National Player of the Year before the season started, and I think that's probably going to happen. That's probably going to happen. I just think that before the season started, I probably would have picked you guys to win in Chapel Hill, them to win in Durham. And I think if I had to put money on it right now, I would say you guys come back and beat them next week. I mean, I think that's probably what happens.
Something like the last 3 years, they played 8 times. I think they've alternated win-loss, win-loss, like the last 3 seasons.
And you won the last one.
And we won the last one. Saturday at Wake Forest. North Carolina was amazing.
They looked great.
Cameron Johnson was amazing. They shot the ball fantastic. They didn't turn it over that badly. If that team shows up and Cameron Johnson shows up like that, it'll be awfully hard to beat.
No question.
Can you expect 7 for 11 or whatever he was again? Probably not. Trey Jones might be the best defender in the country, and Kobe White, as great as he's been through the first 2/3 of the way through the season, he will turn it over on you. And I'm a little concerned that Trey Jones is going to be able to speed him up.
And if those turnovers turn into big jams on the other side, and that crowd,
the live ball turnovers, and you let them pass it ahead, and Zion Williamson is sticking his head through the basket, and the roof is, and 6 minutes into the game, you find yourself down 10. It's going to be a tough hole to climb out of. They can withstand the early run, take a few punches early. I think they can. They've got enough firepower that they can hang in there with Duke. Let's not forget Duke's not. They're like 305th in the country in shooting the 3 ball.
Right.
Now, if those 3 balls start falling, forget about it.
Well, that's anywhere.
Yeah, if those 3 balls start,
basketball game anywhere.
What do I expect to happen? I expect this one to be tight for about 38 minutes, and at Duke, it pains me to say it. I'm kind of having trouble getting it out.
Sure.
I think Duke wins the ball game tonight. I think Carolina comes back and wins the next 2 ball games and kind of stays out of that mess in the middle. But tonight I see it being very tight. It's going to be a great ball game. I'm sure there'll probably be something that happens that 5 years from now you watch it and you remember this game for this play or this group of plays.
Well, I promise you I will be watching.
I'm seeing something like 81-74, something like that.
That sounds about right.
About 6 or 7 points, 8 points. So I hope I'm wrong.
Sure.
So we'll see. We're very excited. I can't wait. Both of those teams are headed to the tournament, no doubt about it. 2 teams that are on the bubble. One was in until they kind of wet the bed on themselves last night. The other one's still fighting. South Carolina and Clemson are 2 interesting basketball teams, in my opinion, BG. Because I'm looking at this, I watch Clemson, and I don't see anything that jumps out at me. Like, they can look really good. I know they've got players that can play.
They've lost 3 straight ACC games.
Right.
They didn't look like they belonged on the court
in
Florida State.
Florida State ran them out of their own gym.
The 2 previous losses, both by 1 point. So, I mean, obviously, those could have gone the other way. But yeah, they looked overmatched versus the Seminoles last night.
Oh yeah, and then you take on the flip side, South Carolina. All they do is win, baby. The Gamecocks are still rolling. They get a big win.
I'll go so
a big
far as
win
to
last
say,
night against Ole Miss.
I will go so far as to say that South Carolina right now, I wouldn't want to play them. No, I wouldn't want to play them, and I especially wouldn't want to play them at home. I think Hassani Gravett has a case to make for SEC Sixth Man of the Year right now. In fact, I would love. I tweeted it out. Nobody's come at me with a better name. I mean, my man's shooting 47% from behind the arc in league play for this season, TanMan. I mean, that's
that high.
Yeah. He's been
he's approaching Cam. Out. He's approaching Cam Johnson's stratosphere.
He is, and I'll say this, and I mean, maybe remind me of this the next time I get down on Frank Martin. But what did I tell you before the season started was the biggest problem with Frank Martin's basketball tenure at South Carolina? Do you remember? This is the second time I've asked you if you remember. You still don't.
No, I don't.
His ability to retain players.
Okay.
He's recruited okay. He's had some success, and then those players get suspended or they leave the program or whatever. And I think you can attribute this season's early struggles to that. Now, you can say Zion Williamson, and you can throw these guys out there that are true freshmen that are machines. But those are not the true freshmen that showed up at South Carolina. Mm-hmm. The true freshmen that showed up at South Carolina were good 3 to 4 star players, not McDonald's All-Americans,
right,
who didn't know how to play defense for that length of time, who had probably never had to play defense, right? Play basketball for Frank Martin, you have to play defense.
Better play defense.
But because of guys like Raw Felder not being on the team anymore, you can name 5 or 6 of them, okay? We had to put those guys on the court. A.J. Lawson had to be on the court. And so
they took some lumps
They
early.
took some lumps because of it. Now, but I'll say this about Frank. He's a hell of a coach, man. Look at Chris Silva. Go back and look at Chris Silva and where he came from, where he was ranked as a recruit coming out of Gabon. All right,
I can't even tell you where that's at.
It's on the western coast of Africa. Go look at his freshman year. Frank Martin has shaped him into a first-round NBA talent. This kid, and he is playing lights out right now. Frank Martin can develop talent, but what he has got to do is hold on to that talent. So if we are still talking about these guys in 2 years, if we keep these kids until they're juniors, look out.
Well, I want to talk about
they're
now.
not making the tournament.
You don't think so?
No, I do not think so. I think they're going to lose on the road at Mississippi State, and that's going to be the end of that talk.
Okay.
South Carolina can't lose another game. The tournament committee doesn't care whether your wins came in the league or not. Lenardi doesn't even have them on the bubble, man.
You're right.
They doesn't have them anywhere.
You're right, because their work is not done.
Clemson has a better chance at making the tournament, but they're not as good of a basketball team.
South Carolina's
That's just how it is.
South Carolina's work is not done. You've got 5 basketball games left. I agree with you. At Mississippi State, it's probably going to be a loss.
You beat them by 5 early on in this run, back in early January when you first started. In fact, that might have been the first.
But going to Starkville, going to Stark Vegas, playing at the Hump, I think you probably do lose that game. But other than that, you've got an Alabama team who's basically a mirror image of you. And then you've got teams at the bottom of the SEC standings. And you've got them at home. You've got, Georgia.
We talked about ATM.
Yep, Georgia always. If you go, let's say you go 3-2 these last 5 ball games, that puts you at 12-6 in the conference.
Well, I think 3-2 is that's going to happen.
Listen,
maybe 4-1.
Listen, that puts you at 12-6 in the conference. So that would put you at 17 and 14.
And I don't know if you remember
17 and 14. You do that. You win a conference tournament game. You get to 18 and 15. I think 18 and 15, top 4 in the SEC. 12-6 in the conference gets you in. I think it does.
When we were talking about this season before it started, and I picked South Carolina to finish 4th in the SEC, and you laughed at me. Listen, and
you saw it coming all along.
And you told me 4th in. I remember you saying this. You said 4th in the SEC, and you said, what would that be? South Carolina's not going 12-6 in the SEC this year. Look at that schedule.
Well, look, in 2008, just for some a comparison, in 2017, the conference put in Wake Forest from the ACC. They were 9-9 at 19-13. They finished 10th. They also put in Vanderbilt, who was 19-15. They were 6-8 in the SEC. They were in 7th place in the SEC in 2017, and Vandy got in. I think it would.
Does having a Final Four at this point help you slide through that bubble, man?
Maybe. I mean, I've always maintained it helped Arizona.
Don't you think
through the end of the Lute Olson years?
Don't you think some of the consideration is that a basketball fan in the state of Arizona is more likely to stop and say, "Oh, that's South Carolina."
I remember them. To me, what South Carolina had, the biggest thing they have to hope for is they have to hope to be judged on who they are, not who they used to be. If you're going to, if you turn the TV off after December,
right,
and that's what you know of South Carolina, then
what do you think?
What do you think South Carolina is tournament worthy?
What would South Carolina do to Wyoming right now?
Oh no, they'd run Wyoming out of the gym.
What would they do to Stony Brook right now?
I don't know. Stony Brook is.
They've put together a decent season, but they don't have the depth.
Well, look, like I said, you've judged South Carolina off who they are from January.
And I'm tired of hearing about that Wofford loss. There ain't nothing wrong with that Wofford loss.
I told you that when it happened.
Well, I told you that, man. Wofford College is a basketball factory.
Right now, have you seen the latest Lenardi projections?
Yes.
They've got them going to Columbia.
Yes.
In a possible second-round matchup to Duke. I told somebody today, I said, that's the same thing they did to Duke a couple years ago. They said they stuck them in that bracket in Greenville with South Carolina. Wofford's going to get in and beat somebody. Now, I don't know that I'm buying the whole they're going to get in with an at-large bid if they lose in Asheville.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I'm going to have to believe. I'm going to have to see it to believe it. But if they get in, buddy, you better watch out because Wofford's going to beat somebody.
Wofford still has a road game at Furman coming up this Saturday.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that they're going to run the table. I think they've got 3 road games to close the season out with.
Yeah.
I hope they get in. I'd love to see them get 2 teams in, but I always keep going back to, look, man, Davidson went to the Elite Eight in 2008, and they were in the NIT in 2009 with Steph Curry because they didn't win their conference tournament.
Right.
So if you left out the biggest show that your conference has ever had, then I'm not going to buy.
Put Steph. Well, of course, then again, and he was Steph, but he wasn't. But you're right.
Well, by then he was
Davidson,
Steph.
yeah, he was.
By then he was Steph. If they left them out, I'm not buying that SoCon ever gets to make a believer out of me committee. That is it for episode 98. We are done. Again, download the Spreaker app. Each week you can listen to us live. If you don't catch us live, we can be found on any one of about a half a dozen or so other platforms. And that's it. I'm done. You got anything else, BG?
No, I mean, I'm just, like I said a long time ago, if South Carolina makes the NIT, I'm okay with that. I think this is, I would love them to make the tournament, but again, the thing I'm worried about is keeping these players and actually building something for a change. That's what I would like to see.
Work is not done at Columbia. Keep grinding. I think the Gamecocks are going to sniff that bubble before too much longer. We are out. Battle of Tobacco Road, 9 o'clock. Don't miss a minute.
Get a nap now. Well, not now. We're live.
Eat your cheese doodles. Make a sandwich. Be ready at 9.
Cheese doodles, that's a thing?
According to Jerry B, they are.